Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Prodigy from Kilo23. Today we're checking out some more AirsoftPeak.com products. Now, I'm the sort of airsoft tech who likes doing a series of build videos where you get a bunch of parts all at one time and you do like, okay, I'm going to do these parts, and these parts in 3 separate videos. It ends up being a lot of fun in the filming, the teching, and the editing process. You get a lot more freedom to just have a lot of fun and be a little more spontaneous, and it's a really fun way to do a review process of a number of parts. So that's the way I'm going to do it today. I've got 3 different review videos we're going to do for this series of parts. Now, they're all going to be installed in my Echo 1 MP5A4. This is an older model. They stopped making it. It's the Full Metal Task Force model. I've got it shooting about 300 to 310 feet per second right now. It's an indoor field legal limit. Other than that, it's all stock. I just trimmed the spring down. So we're taking a stock MP5 pretty much, and we're going to install some really cool parts in it. Now, AirsoftPeak has actually been a really reliable retailer for me. I've not had a single issue with them. They're always getting my parts to me at a really fast pace. Being located in China, it does take a few weeks to get to the US, so it's not a big deal. But they're always getting me the right parts. I've never had an issue, never had a broken or damaged part. It's all the stuff I order, and it's actually really good service. Now let's dive into the small myriad of parts I've actually got today. I like to review companies that make parts, not just the parts themselves. If you take 1 or 2 parts from a company, okay, the part could be good, could be okay, could be really great. But once you actually take like a whole assortment of parts from one company, you really get to see how this company makes parts, if they're actually a good quality overall. It really gives you a good insight into whether or not these companies are actually worth their money or not. So I did some looking over the AirsoftPeak site and I said, okay, I have not tried a brand called Energy before. It's just another China-made brand. But I want to see what parts they make because they're a little bit different than most other companies. So I picked out 5 parts from Energy. I wanted to see how cool they were. The first was a version 2 8mm gearbox. Now this is the bearing model. It actually comes with 6 8mm bearings. And the reason I picked this out is a little bit different. It's actually got a removable back piece so that you can actually swap out the spring, as well as an Energy piston head. Now this is an aluminum bearing piston head, and it almost has what looks like an air brake on it. It's maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch long. It's a little knob that sticks out of the front of the piston head, and in theory it might give you a little bit of a dampening noise. So I'm going to see if that works and how it works, and we'll just give it a try and make sure it gets a good air seal as well. I also picked up one of their polycarb pistons. It seems like it's pretty lightweight. It does not have the second last tooth removed, so I'm going to have to probably do that myself when I'm correcting the AOE. But it does have 7 metal teeth, so it's kind of a plus. Now lastly, I snagged a new cylinder head. This guy has 2 O-rings and a pretty nice pad. It looks like it's pretty compatible with a lot of different piston heads, including the different silent piston heads. So I got this for checking out, make sure it gets a good air seal in there. And their version 2 aluminum bearing spring guide. These, it's pretty hard to go wrong with, but we're still going to check it out. This is pretty cool. I kind of wish I got the red color, but oh well, because all the other parts I got were red and this is blue. Now in this first episode, we're just going to be checking out the gearbox shell, comparing it to the stock gearbox shell that's in this MP5. Then we're going to install some parts, we're going to go to the next video, we're going to do those parts, and so on. Each video is only going to have a couple of parts in it, so we can get a really in-depth look at all these parts that we're installing. Then I'll show you all the little fine-tuning things to get it to work well in there, and we'll actually test it out in the end and see how well they all work together. Now I've gone ahead and disassembled the gearbox completely and removed all the parts. Now as we reassemble it in the new gearbox, I'm going to give you a brief demo on everything it takes to reassemble a gearbox. Now our 2 gearboxes here, offhand, if you're not someone who's really looking at the details, they look like they're pretty much identical. Obviously one's a little more matte colored, one's a little more shiny. Not quite, there's a few more differences than that. Now the original gearbox in this gun was actually a 7mm gearbox. It did come with little bearings. You get 6 of these obviously, 6 holes, 3 gears, 1 for each end of the shaft. The new gearbox shell is going to be 8mm. It does come with the 8mm bearings, 6 of these. They look like they're actually pretty decent quality. Now if you look closely, you can actually see that the outside of this gearbox shell is painted while the inside is not. It's kind of a good thing. When you just put paint on the inside of a gearbox, the dimensions tend to be a little bit tighter. The paint isn't always completely level with itself, so you end up having to sand some things down. It tends to be a little bit of a pain. So the fact that this doesn't have paint on the inside is actually kind of nice to work on. Now our new energy gearbox, you can see the entire thing is painted, all the grooves, inside and out, everything. I've noticed the surface on this is pretty good. There's a few spots where the machining isn't the greatest, so I'd have to probably go through here with a little bit of sandpaper or a file or something and just fine-tune a few things. I think the most noteworthy spot is when the screw holes were made for putting like your pistol grip on or something here. There's a little bit of extra metal here. I went ahead and trimmed that down here. It was from where the screw hole was actually made. And we got the lighting right there. You can actually see where it was pretty well, just in the trench right here. It was pretty easy to file down. I just took a flathead and pushed it out of the way. It was pretty loosely in place, but little things like that. Now there were a few spots in the gearbox where the paint just did not exist at all. It was also in the back here as well. So it's not a big deal. It really doesn't affect anything. The surface is really pretty smooth no matter what, so I'm not too worried about that. Something you'll notice about the original gearbox is that the shell is actually radiused. Now this is a feature I really like. It's where these holes are cut here. You can see that it wasn't done very consistently on the bottom, but the top here looks fine. This is designed to help the gearbox shell last longer so it won't crack under pressure over time. Now this and a servo pad can help your gearbox last a long, long time. Looking at the new energy gearbox, you can see it's not radiused, but it really just takes a drill and a bit to take care of that. Like a couple of minutes of a little bit of fine-tune work and the same process can be done. It's not very hard at all. Let's go ahead and talk about this quick change spring system on the back. One thing I did like is that you do have to remove this to actually take apart the gearbox shell, so you can't take it apart while this is in there, and that could cause problems potentially. So you can see that there's kind of a smaller section here and a larger section that this grips around, so you actually cannot remove this while the shell is still assembled. So you have to remove this in the spring guide to get it to come out. One thing I was a little worried about, there's not a whole lot of metal holding this in the top here, and it just kind of sits in place. So I'm going to be using a pretty low-powered spring in this gun. I'm not super worried about it, but if you're going to use like an M120 or higher, it might over time have a chance of fracturing. Compared to the stock gearbox shell we had on the MP5, this is actually pretty nice. I did wish it came with a radiused front. That's not a big deal. I can do that myself. But I do like the quick change spring option here. Now I'm going to be running a lot of stock parts in here. The Echo 1 motor it comes with is actually a really nice high torque motor, and you can run an M140 or 150 spring on that without a problem. So although I'm going to be running an M190 or an M90 spring in this gearbox, I can swap it out later on for something heavier if I really want to. Now, although I'm a little concerned about putting some larger, heavier springs on this back piece here, for a while it shouldn't be a problem at all, especially if you're using a weak spring, and that could be just me showing a little bit of too much concern. Obviously I have not tested this long term, but we'll see how it goes. Aside from that, it's pretty good. A little bit of filing, a little bit of remachining just to get it nice and touched up. You might want to clean the inside. I noticed there's a little bit of dust in there, probably just from the factory where it's made. Aside from that, it's pretty nice. And the fact that it does have the 8mm holes here, you can put 8mm steel bushings, ceramic bearings. Those are fantastic, by the way. Go pick some up. You've got a whole myriad of different choices for bushings, bearings that you can pick up, and 8mm is a great size. So I think overall, for about $40 on AirsoftPeak, you get a pretty good deal. Get a gearbox shell that is pretty well machined. It looks like it'll do pretty well. And you get a set of 6 8mm bearings that look like they're pretty good quality. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. This has been the first part of 3 videos. The next one is going to cover the piston and piston head. After that, we're doing the spring guide and cylinder head. So, come back next time, check out the installation, and we'll get all these parts installed, and I'll show you a lot of different tips and tricks on getting these parts to work well in a gearbox. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Prodigy from Kilo23. If you want, go check out my Facebook page. Link is in the description as well. I do a lot of fun things on there, so come back next time. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.